We're ready, Brian. You get ready.
Yep, go ahead and call the meeting to order. All who wish, rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's see, next up, we have agenda adjustments. Looking, I don't see Angela online, so add item that says E,
Oh,
B, but well, let's leave it. Let's just squeeze it in at 8A just in case Angela does show up. So move everything else down.
Brian. Sorry, it's Sam. She had a family commitment, so she said she was sorry because she usually does like to come to this, but she had a conflict.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, we won't do anything special. So I would make a motion to add item 8E. Is that right? Yes,
Yeah.
8E for approve international trip. Is there a second?
A second.
Any other agenda adjustments? All those in favor? Passes 4-0. Next up would be consideration of the minutes. I'd make a motion to approve the minutes from September 9th as presented. Is there a second?
A second.
Any corrections or questions? All those in favor? Passes 5-0. Make a motion to approve regular warrants 5, 6, and 6A. Payroll warrants 5 and 6, main purse August 2025, and bond 25 warrant number 1. Is there a second?
A second.
Any questions? All those in favor? Okay, the floor is open for public comment. Go ahead and unmute and speak. Not seeing anybody. Go ahead and move on to acknowledgements. Jake,
Nothing at this time.
don't think I do. Kevin?
A happy Rosh Hashanah for those that observe it.
Mark?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Hunter? Sophia?
Nothing at this time.
Okay, I have a report coming. And Meredith?
Nothing this time.
Okay. We'll go ahead and move on to reports. We'll start with the director reports. Lisa?
Sure. Per usual, we hit the ground running in special education. We have already got 17 evaluations ordered. 6 of those are new referrals. Some of them are triennials, but it just I say it's a busy time, but I don't think we ever hit a time that isn't busy. So we, like every year, we have a few surprises with some of our kindergarten crew that requires more assistance than we expected, and they didn't show up through Child Find. So, we quickly try to come up with supports and move things along for these kiddos. I've been really pleased with the way our early childhood program is running. We currently have 10 students in programming, and Mary Kate, our person who's case manages for those that are outside of our school. But we have probably 6 that are receiving services in our school, and we're already finding, through our child find screenings that there are students in our pre-Ks that are going to qualify and need support. So it's kind of nice to not be scrambling as we have in the past. Working with CDS, we're trying to pull them into our building and get things to go, and we don't have to do that anymore. We can provide these services and get things moving along. So that's been a great feeling. We've got 236 students right now that we're providing special ed services for. Very busy school year. As far as multi-language learning programming, we've got our additional teacher now. So we've got one teacher who is staffing the students at ASA, while the other is working with our OMS and OHS population. We have 20 students currently being served at ASA with 14 at OMS and OHS. There are still several students that have to undergo screening. And I know that we've got requests from the board to provide a more in-depth report in October. So we're putting that information together for you and looking forward to sharing that. Any questions?
Any questions? No? Great. Susan?
Hey, good evening. I have a couple things that aren't in my written report that I wanted to share with you today. One was just an update that I counted about 80 people at our first annual welcome back potluck for families and game night. It was really great fun and I think a big success. I'd really like to send a shout out to Peter from OMS. He did a great job getting some middle school student ambassadors to come, and that helped draw in some families. And to Erin Ellis, too. She was really instrumental in helping get things off the ground this year. So thanks to folks for that. NWA testing starts this week at the high school. I think we're ready, Sam, right? We're starting with 9th and 10th graders on Thursday. And then another item that just kind of finalized today, there's a group of 6 folks, myself and 5 teachers, or 4 teachers and Angie McLaughlin from ASA, who decided that we would apply for a 2-day training in Brewer by the Maine DOE around play-powered learning for early educators. So there, we have our early childhood educator up to a first grade teacher, and that is an application process. It comes with about $5,000 to $7,000 of funding to help buy supplies for teams that have an administrator attend and are accepted into that process. So we're pretty excited about that and keeping our fingers crossed. We'll know by October 10th for sure. In my board report, I did mention that we had our first curriculum committee meeting of the year. This late fall, early winter, we hope to be able to finish K-12 physical education and world language and bring that forward to the board. And then late spring, early summer, visual arts and 6 to 10 ELA curriculum. Another sort of curriculum connected piece is that our website now has our K-5 ELA curriculum added to it. So check that out sometime. And if you could, that'd be great. And if you notice that things are out of date, please let me know. I kind of tried to go through and update things with dates and make sure we had the right handbook up for the high school, things like that. But it can be kind of easy to miss those. So if you see something amiss, please let me know. And some good news from the federal front. Because of the large impact the new ruling about or memorandum of agreement between the state and the federal government around how Maine calculates Title II funds. And that really impacted us to the tune of about $15,000 less this year than we have gotten in the past. The state recognized that and had some unallocated funds from FY25 that they've added to our pot, I suppose. So in our application for and our performance report, our plan for the FY25 federal funds. So we have about $10,000 more, 10,163 for Title II professional development funds that we can use between now and September 30th of 2026. And we plan to use that for our work on our strategic plan and implementation of that. So we'll keep you posted on how that gets allocated exactly. And hopefully we can hire some outside consultants or guest speakers to come and work with our staff. So that's what I have for you this evening. I don't know if folks have questions.
Do you have any questions? Go ahead and move on. Next up, we have a student report.
All right, for school culture, students have kicked off this year adjusting to a phone-free environment.
Homecoming week is September 29th through October 3rd.
During homecoming week, students will be participating in a homecoming food drive, and students can check their emails to see what foods they can donate to get points for their class.
And the homecoming dance is on Saturday, September 27th from 8 to 10 p.m. in the OHS cafeteria.
Yearbooks are available for pre-order.
And it's an early release day on Wednesday, October 1st.
Last Tuesday, the 16th, OHS hosted their open house.
And OMS Picture Day is on October 14th.
Moving on to academics, applications for National Honor Society have opened.
And from September 25th to September 30th, 9th graders will be taking the NOEA and 10th graders will be taking the Maine 3-year assessment.
On October 1st, 11th graders will be taking the PSAT and 12th graders will be having senior seminar.
In the middle school, October 6th and 7th will be NOEA testing days.
Quarter 1 progress reports come out at 8 a.m. next Monday, September 29th for both middle and high school.
Next Monday will also be extracurricular and print grade checks.
And parent-teacher conferences are on Monday, October 6th from 2:30 to 7 p.m. and Tuesday, October 7th from 2:30 to 6 p.m.
Moving on to activities, students have been enjoying playing on the newly resurfaced tennis courts.
Boys and girls soccer have been enjoying playing games under the new field lights.
Orno volleyball has a current record of 0-5 with a game at Lee Academy on Friday.
OHS football has a current record of 1-2 with a game at Dexter on Saturday.
OHS field hockey is currently third in Class C with a record of 5-1, and OHS field hockey recently beat a longtime rival of Dexter and has had other big wins against Emmett. Both JV and varsity teams are seeing success.
OHS girls soccer has a current record of 3-3. The program this year has seen much improvement compared to the last couple of years, thanks to a large pool of talented first-year players. OHS boys soccer is currently undefeated with a 5-0 record this season. The boys beat the previous Class C Northern Maine champions, Washington Academy.
The OHS boys cross country team is currently ranked 4th in Class C, but due to some injuries and sickness, the girls cross country team has not been able to score at meets this year. But at all the meets they have attended, they have been sweeping podiums.
And there's no student concerns at this time.
Great, thank you. Nice flavor of everything that's happening, so thank you. Any questions? Okay, superintendent's report.
Good evening. I have several things listed and then a few things that aren't listed to bring to you tonight. First, what's listed here, I gave you all a copy of the agenda and the list of sessions that are planned for the MSMA Fall Conference down in Augusta, I believe October 23rd, 24th. If you're interested in attending, let me know. I'll be going down both days so we can ride share and would love to have you attend. But we do need to get registered soon. So if you can let me know in the next week or so, if you would like to attend one or both days, you don't have to attend the whole thing. And if you can't go for a full day and you want to just write it down yourself during a portion of the day, you can also do that. Kevin had asked us to bring back some information about student technology and the philosophy behind our decisions about devices. And so I want to thank Jason and Melissa for being here tonight. We, with the help of IT, put together some information for you that kind of gives an overview. And I just want to talk through it so you we can all hear that and kind of have a discussion. I would say the three elements that we consider when we make decisions about instructional technology would be curricular needs, and then cost considerations, and then the functionality in terms of longevity of devices. When looking at what to do in the middle school in particular, IT did a survey and put together kind of a table of the applications that were currently being used and how they could be utilized across either a MacBook, or an iPad, or a Chromebook. And what they found basically was that the functionality for all of the ways that the middle school staff were using devices could be really handled across any of those devices. It might work a little different on one device to the next, but they all, it worked in all the devices or all the planned uses. And for some activities, I guess it depends on who you ask, but it might be a slightly easier to work on an application, one device versus another, but not big differences overall, I would say. And down at the bottom, you can see kind of how device choices are distributed across the state. And so the three primary devices that are used across the state are either a MacBook, an iPad, or a Chromebook. They apparently do offer a Windows laptop option. Brian, or maybe Kevin and I, one of us were talking, and I didn't think Windows laptop was an option, but it's a very minuscule portion of the state that uses those. And so when you look at the distribution, there are a few things that, that feel significant here. The largest portion of schools overall are using Chromebooks, but there are differences in terms of at each level and of what level uses which device the most. And Chromebooks are certainly the most prevalent in high schools, with MacBooks being the most prevalent in middle schools. And I think, Melissa and Jason pointed this out, and I think they are absolutely spot on. The Milty program started in middle school back in the early 2000s. And it was only 7th and 8th grade that had these state provided devices. And so I think, the fact that it started there, some districts are still, investing in the laptops, the MacBooks there, and haven't made the investment actually probably to expand out to other grades. But when you look at how iPads are being used, the highest users of iPads are elementary, but then evenly split across the other two levels, evenly around 20 to 25%. And then, MacBooks overall are the lowest kind of overall use, and that's just a cost factor, I think, for most places. With only 22% of K-12 students having MacBooks. One of the things that the IT did back, I don't know, early spring, late winter, probably winterish, when we were looking at budget, thinking about what to do with district laptop needs. We were considering our 4th and 5th grade use of iPads, and whether or not it made sense to bring that up to the middle school, given the survey of uses and the versatility of iPads for what middle school teachers were using the devices for. And so there was a survey that, not surprisingly, MacBooks would be the first choice that teachers had, with iPads really, and Chromebooks kind of coming next, but really iPads more preferred. Chromebooks are pretty unpopular in this district. I think they do have functionality, but I think folks are more familiar with Apple's products and the suite of kind of Apple specific apps. And so there's certainly a preference toward Apple devices. So after looking at all of that and considering cost, the cost comparisons we've kind of laid out here, and a little bit of Milty history, I think is important to understand for context. So I kind of wrote out a little bit about the history here. So I mentioned that it started in the early 2000s, was just 7th and 8th grade, and this was every child gets a device provided by the state, and every teacher that teaches those students, at no cost to districts. In 2009, Milty expanded, and as a district, you could buy in devices. You could buy devices off their preferred, costing for your high school students, but the state wasn't subsidizing that, and this district did that. And then in 2012, Milty began to offer other options outside of just the MacBook, and added the iPad as an option. I think mainly at that time, maybe a Windows device. Probably.
I feel like if that coincides when Governor LePage was in, maybe, because I think he brought in other devices that were not Apple specific at the time, but it might have just been iPads.
Yeah, I know iPads came in then. And then in 2021 is when there was really the pivot that we're still in right now. And they kind of reframed Milty in a pretty significant way for that year. And basically districts can choose one grade level to have Milty support. There are some parameters around the grades, like if you choose a grade, the next year you have to either choose the grade above it or below it. to subsidize. There's just some nuances like that. Because they don't want you choosing like, 11th grade and then 3rd grade, and then they want there to be kind of a systemic pattern to what you're doing. And they also set a limit. They said, we're gonna provide up to this amount, that with that amount, you can buy the base models in the Milty program, but if you go beyond that, it's on the cost of the district. And so when they rolled out that year, and really the first couple of years of this new Milty reset, you could either get a Chromebook or an iPad with the subsidy that the state was giving. And then if you wanted the MacBook option, you paid the difference to get the MacBook option. And so whatever grade you wanted to do that in, you would get devices for the number of students you have in that grade, plus the staff that teach that grade at that subsidized rate. But also you could also buy other devices with their preferred rates that they've negotiated with Apple, and whatever the Chromebook devices for other grades. So through those years, we purchased middle school devices, and then we purchased 5th grade devices. The first few years, we were told that we could not, that high school really wasn't an option for us, for our tuition students, that we would just be able to get subsidy for our resident high school students, because they said that sending district would have to give up their Milty money to you if you wanted to have a student from another community getting a Milty device. They changed that this year and said they would support all of our high school students, and if we chose a high school grade. So we jumped at that chance, because some of our thinking is we want to leverage the most state support for the Milty program in our district. And so high school grades are the largest grades we have, and so we want to try to use as much of that funding as possible to support the programming. So this year we did 9th grade laptop replacement. So the device allocation, you can see, I didn't actually put the whole thing here, but this year we received $479 per device. And with that, we purchased a MacBook for 9th grade that cost $1,093.50. So, the net cost to the district was $615 and change. The other thing that we purchased this year, we purchased a 2nd grade refresh of iPads, and we purchased the 6th grade iPads to move that up to 6th grade. So that the 6th grade class has iPads this year. In our technology device replacement kind of rotation plan, we shared this with you a year or so ago, because we didn't have a plan in place for how we were going to maintain and refresh these devices, which is a pretty significant, part of our instructional, costs to maintain. And we wanted to make sure we were doing it in a way that spread costs out in a as even as possible, and in a way that felt sustainable over time, given that the state support for the program was really, lower than it had been, years ago. And so the goals with that is really to maximize Milty as much as possible, and to try to level costs over time to around $100,000 a year. $100,000 a year. Sometimes it's more than that. Sometimes it's less than that in the plan, and some of it's still a little uncertain where we're headed. For example, we're trying the 6th grade pilot this year, and we're calling it a pilot to see how it works in middle school with the iPads. So, depending on what we find about how that works, we might have to rethink subsequent years. But the other thing that we're finding relates to the number 3 here, in that longevity of devices is not what it once was. At least at this point, it's not. And we don't know if that's a function of devices that were purchased around the COVID years. But what IT does know is that just the repair and damage costs to MacBooks are more significant in cost and frequency than they are to the iPads. The iPads are just more rugged. The cases are more rugged. The cost to repair them is lower. And so, we see that we get a lot more lifespan out of an iPad with the case that we get, and, just the way the device, I don't know, is used, I guess, is less prone to dropping or falling off. And less damage is done when it does fall. During the Milty years of, well, back in early Milty, the devices could never leave middle school, so they always just stayed in middle school. But in more recent years, when we were buying more of the devices, we could have a device come in to the district for a student in 6th grade, and it could last until that student graduated. And we would get, and really it would still be worth something after that, not, crashing and burning. But now we're finding that some of these devices are 4 years tops, and they're really showing performance issues. So longevity is something that's a real concern of ours around the MacBooks in particular. So this year we actually went to a slightly more expensive option. There were 2 options in the menu of Milty devices, one with an
M2 chip and M4 chip, yeah.
and we went with the M4 chip just so it would have a better processor and hopefully last longer. So, I guess it's yet to be seen if now that we're out of COVID and the chip shortage is maybe there's just more quality products because the demand isn't what it was then, that will get more life out of these. But our middle school team, our 6th grade team, is still kind of ramping up their knowledge and familiarity with the device. And there have been some bumps, certainly, of them figuring out, okay, I would do this on a MacBook and now I need to do this. And IT's been working with them and is going to continue to provide some PD to help them as they're planning forward and thinking about how to translate activities they know are coming, that they maybe have questions about how it translates over to an iPad. I think for students, it's a really easy transition. Although some of the uses probably are slightly different, maybe what they did in 4th and 5th grade with the devices might look a little different as the student progresses and has perhaps more complex assignments with a device. So that's what we're kind of trying to figure out this year with the middle school pilot. I think thought that we had is we for sure think that keeping the MacBooks are important for high school and the uses that we think high school teachers and students have for their curriculum needs. And it just felt like middle school might, a lot of places are using Chromebooks, which is about like the laptop or the iPad in terms of capabilities. It's a pretty limited device, actually more limited than an iPad. And a lot of districts are just using Chromebooks. So we felt like it was worth considering how the middle school could use the laptops right now, or the iPads. Right now, 7th and 8th grade are using just the MacBooks that we've had in circulation. And so I think we will have to, figure out what we're doing with those grades, and we probably try to, if we go with iPads, I think we could, in our plan, we have to buy the 7th and 8th grade iPads next year. If we don't go with iPads, then I think we'd probably have to stagger that more, because I think it would be hard to do both of those in 1 year and do another grade of high school. So that's kind of the overview, but Jason, Melissa, would you add anything to that I missed?
No, I think you
Yeah.
hit the nail
Well,
on the head.
they put a lot of this together, so
Yeah.
thank you.
I mean, if you have any
This together.
questions, we can maybe go that way. Does
Yeah.
anybody have any other questions?
I mean, I had one question first. Thank you for putting this together. It's a really complicated program. That's pretty much the extent of what I've figured out over the 2+ years I've been on the board, is that it's always complicated and always changing. And it's, I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but it's kind of a typical state unfunded mandate, right? They give it to you as a gift for a few years and get everybody hooked, and then they expect the local districts to start to pick up the costs as if we have money that they don't have. when it's really, if anything, the reverse. The one question I did have is a cost question. I see that they're extremely unpopular. I'm not necessarily advocating a change because I know there's switchover changes, but I'm just curious. Make some models and costs of the Windows laptops because that's comparable in functionality to the MacBooks, but I imagine they're a lot cheaper.
So one interesting thing about the cost breakdown that we looked at the MLTI website where they host that information is they didn't provide a cost for the Windows laptops. They gave us a cost for everything else, but the Windows laptops didn't have a cost associated with it. So it's not something I can give you as far as an answer because they didn't provide that information.
We can ask though.
Yeah. And we also didn't have.
The other thing was the teachers using a MacBook going, and if they were to jump to a Windows platform, they'd be learning all new programs and redesigning their curriculum to work within a different set of programs, and they'd be learning all these new skills in while they're both laptop computers. There are a lot of different functionalities and, oh, where is this? Oh my gosh, it's now the start menu rather than an Apple menu. And we didn't want to put that undue stress on the teachers where the jump from a laptop to an iPad for students would have GarageBand, would have iMovie, would have all of the programs that they're currently using with the students with the MacBooks, just in a different device. So the curriculum needs didn't need to change. The assignments didn't need to change. The programs didn't need to change. They just needed to learn that button for this that was here is now there. Oh, it's still split track, but split track is over here instead of over here. It was a gentle, easy step rather than a bigger jump.
I totally understand that, and I don't take transition costs lightly at all, especially because the district pays for those. But the other hand, I suspect I could go out on the street and get a laptop for under $450. And so once we get into the place we're having budget decisions and we're downgrading from a full-fledged computer to a pad, whether it's a Chromebook or an iPad, because of budget discussions, I just would like to know the price.
Sure.
And if it's a case, it looks like there's one or two districts who are doing it. If it's a case of they got a special dispensation and went out and negotiated their own price, I have a pretty good handle on what that is because I buy laptops for personal use pretty often. But I have to think a Windows laptop would be as cheap or cheaper, even a pretty robust performing one with a reasonably built case and everything would be comparable to an iPad. And at that point, the conversation, the cost conversation versus the conversion conversation becomes at least a conversation I think we should be having. Right. But that's my 2 cents. Other thoughts?
Yeah, can I add something to the conversion conversation? It always, and I don't work in education, so I always found it odd that, and you're smiling because you probably know what I'm gonna say. There's all these Apple devices in school, and then you get to the workplace, they don't exist. Like, I'm looking down the line here, none of us have an Apple device. So, and I understand students of your age learn things convert a lot easier. But like my daughter, for example, when she had an Apple device all through here, went to the engineering department, they said, no, we don't want you to have one of those. Like, we need you to have a Windows device. She obviously picked it up, but it just baffles me that these kids spend like K through 12 on these Apple devices and then they get out of here and nobody uses them. And I may be wrong because
nobody.
Right.
I think a lot of that has to do with Apple's very good at marketing their product.
Well,
And the original MLTI, Apple was the only option,
only
and
choice.
it got in there, and then Apple Education, so a lot of colleges, all the education colleges went with Macs, and I think it was what there was, and then,
Yeah.
again.
I
that's the-
remember learning to be a teacher, that's all we had was Macs. Everybody else in the university had Windows machines, and I grew up on Windows machine. But now I have to learn this new program because I'm gonna be a teacher. So they'd already started with educating the teachers.
Well, there was a time when Apple gave huge discounts because it was part of their strategy. We'll get the kids early and train them on apples and then they'll keep using apples in their career. But that ran into corporate purchasing departments who made the same point that I just made.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I second your point,
Yeah,
Jake. We can talk about training costs for teachers, but at some point for the students, there's actually a reverse training cost that's going on too, as well as a out-of-pocket cost. So We don't have to decide any of this right now. Meredith's just giving us an update, but, you know, during the budget discussion, we will see a multi-line item, and I think we should have a conversation at that
Well, I
point.
would definitely agree with that, especially if the choice is gonna come down to, we're looking at more Chromebooks. I would think we'd have to look at Windows laptops, because Chromebooks are not good.
I mean, so far, the difference in price is $20 between a Chromebook and an iPad. So we're paying the $20 and getting iPads,
Mm.
which I agree are better than Chromebooks. But if it's a choice between a Chromebook and iPad or a Windows computer, which might even be cheaper, that's a whole different conversation to me.
I would agree with that. I'm a Windows person now.
Another piece that would plan into that would be to talk about management and how the software that we would need to purchase to manage the school devices as well. Just another cost piece that goes into it.
Yeah, it would be an upfront cost for sure. I mean, Windows has a substantial management ecosystem too, because companies with 10,000 employees are running on them. The US government runs on
Yeah.
them, so.
It's just,
But upfront, yeah, it's a big conversation, right? The upfront costs are time and money for sure.
Lisa did raise a point in the chat, from a special ed perspective.
We'd have to take a look at that too. There's quite a few accessibility options under Windows as well. So I can't have an expert opinion about whether they're as good or not, but yeah, I'm not pushing that we just make it a huge jump tomorrow. It would be a conversation. We'd have to think about the cost, but for now, I'd just like to know the cost of a Windows laptop compared to the other two.
I'll try getting that for you, yeah.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Yep.
I do feel the need to say one sentence that like MacBooks are certainly pretty common in professions. I think it just depends. Designers, use MacBooks sort of overwhelmingly.
Artistic professions use.
I know a number of data scientists that also run pretty powerful MacBooks. I'm a Windows person, obviously, but I do have friends who use Macs.
Yeah.
Thank you for this report, everyone. This is very helpful, and I will share this with other folks that have had some curiosity about these things.
You have,
Yes, other items. So I wanted to just run through what our plans were for board meeting special topics that we have planned. Lisa mentioned that in October, I've asked the MLL team to bring a report. We talked about that sometime last school year and it was on my list to bring back to fall, just to update us on our program and services and what we have going on in our MLL program. That same month, we're going to bring you some information about the new NWEA norms so that you can digest that prior to our data workshop in December. So that will be October 21st. And then November, we'll start our school presentations like we did last year, kind of the school being able to highlight their data specifically. So OHS will do their state of the school kind of presentation in November. In December, we'll have our fall data workshop. And then January 6th, OMS will do their state of the school presentation. The second January meeting will have some curriculum coming forward, and course proposals, I believe. And then February 3rd will be ACES state of the school. So trying to capture some of our spare capacity that we have to have some special presentations. Alongside that, Brian and I looked at the schedule of both this information and business, and we feel like we can cancel the October 7th meeting and still, have, not an unreasonably long meeting tonight or the second meeting in October. So unless something changes, that's our plan. And we don't have any hiring that we need to do. So I think that will work. Any questions or thoughts about the presentations? Okay. I wanted to give us a quick update on the recent legislative update I attended. There's an annual seminar that Brian and I usually go to, and we usually hear about lots of the legislative changes that occurred. And there's one thing in particular that I just wanted to share with you. I mean, there was plenty to hear about and talk about. Less, I think, that will impact us policy wise, but a few things that we're going to talk about at our next policy meeting. there was certainly no shortage of information, but the one thing I wanted to bring you as a board is about the new requirement that we pass temperature standards as a district. And it's a, LD. Well, it's, chapter 308, and it was passed, and it took effect, it takes effect tomorrow, actually, so we'll be talking about this in our next policy meeting. It requires us to seek guidance from the DOE and adopt a written temperature policy that establishes minimum and maximum temperatures for school buildings. And so at the Drummond and Woodson conference, it said, we're waiting on the DOE to establish this guidance and get it out to us. Well, this is the guidance we received. I just want to tell you what this is. It says DOE recommends that school boards take sufficient time to adopt thoughtful, responsive temperature policies that reflect the unique needs of their local communities and should take into account building ages, design, and HVAC capability. Local microclimates as well as student, staff, health, and safety should also be considered. That's what we got. So
It's all on us.
So MSMA has developed a sample policy that we're going to look at our next policy meeting. So, it was like, thank you for the guidance, but yeah, we just have to figure this out. There is some information that was shared at the Drummond Woodson conference that, other states are doing. I think this is going to be an interesting process for us. So I just wanted to let you know that that's kind of a new element that I'm not sure the state is really prepared to give us a lot of help with. So
Talk about unfunded mandates.
right.
Keep all your classrooms below 80 degrees in the summer, but good luck with your air conditioning. We don't have the money
Yeah.
for it.
Well, they would say, we're not telling you have to keep them below 80.
I know, they
That's
just
what they
want
would
us to
say.
put our necks on the
Yeah,
line for a
and-
policy of what
right.
temperature we're willing to defend.
Right.
And is there any enforcement mechanism if you're outside temperature barriers?
What happens if we don't pass the policy?
It's probably going to be, I don't know if it's going to be a check mark. I have to affirm when I do I have to do a school approval list every summer that says we have this and that, this and that. I don't know if this would be added to that list.
I don't think the policy says we have to have actual numeric goals in there, right? I think that's what the legislature is envisioning, but I think we can
The guidance did.
pass, exactly.
Yeah.
I think we follow the DO's example and follow guidance.
Yeah.
Let's just pass the policy that says we're doing that.
Well, yeah, so we're gonna be, if anyone wants to join us in this conversation, the next policy meeting should be a fun one. So, we'll be taking that up there and then hopefully bringing back something pretty soon to the full board. So just wanted to give you a little background though. Last thing on my list was we had a strategic plan meeting last week. It was our first one of the year. And we, mostly spent time working on, planning for our professional development that's coming up because we're doing, some strands, from the strategic plan as a theme throughout this year's professional development. And staff had to pick, which strand they wanted to work on. So we're rolling out that professional development to begin on October 10th on our workshop day. So as a reminder, our strands are student engagement is one strand, student resilience is another strand, and then the K-5 literacy. So good things are happening. And that's all I have to report.
Great. I think you're on the road for the next one too, with class size.
So I'll keep that. Thank you, Jason and Melissa.
Yeah, thank you.
So it's that time of year where we give another kind of snapshot into class sizes. As a reminder, we do our official state subsidy count October 1st, so coming right up. So in our meeting in late October, I'll give you a look at that. But the data that you have before you is as of last Friday, I think. Although when Lisa was talking, I realized the special education enrollment for the 3-4-year-old early childhood program is 10, not 7. Compared to the last time you saw this, a couple things have changed. Really not much has changed K through 8. High school, let me go back. High school's changed a little bit. We have 8 more students than we had back in just before school started. And what is really, I think, notable for me is when I looked back at our projections for budgeting and figuring out, you know, what our high school numbers in particular might look like. We are around, we're 19 students higher than we predicted during budgeting. The freshman class in particular is 13 students higher than we predicted. Now, what I don't know, and this is something that Lynn pointed out, and she'll be checking when we do our October subsidy count, is how many of those are tuition students versus how many of those are resident. But even so, you know, subsidy wise, whether it's subsidy or tuition, that will be, we're not, it's not looking like we're going to be in a place that is concerning budget wise. I think quite the opposite. So I think when you look at class sizes, there's nothing that jumps out to me. When I look down at the high school at some of the small class sizes, those are, when I check into what those are, they're classes that we know are going to be small. Like, you know, there's an adapted physical education class that's quite small, and that's anomalous, but that's the small class. You see there's a writing center class that's always quite small, and that's what you see in the English class. So those things are not the norm for the rest of the classes. I can't remember what the science class is, but the world language is, you know, an advanced language class, and performing arts. That one is a small section of, I think, a class that's filling out a schedule. You know, we have a little more staffing there than we had intended to have, but was added by the community. So we just have slightly smaller classes for some of the electives there. But I think overall the class sizes are looking pretty strong on the whole. And, you know, no surprises. Do you have questions?
I would be interested to know what the 7-person social studies and the 5-person science
Yeah.
courses are. And
Yeah.
that seems to me to be pretty small, especially the social studies.
Yeah.
Hold on, while you're talking, I'll look that up. I'm on it.
Yeah, Sam has that.
Yeah, I'm on it. Sorry, I'm looking it up.
I'm thinking those might be special education classes.
It could be, or it could be an elective that just was, you know, ended up being hard for some students to get into that had asked for it.
I know with the science with 2.5 new hires, some of the electives ended up getting changed to match the strengths of the new.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
It was hard to get student people because it was already summer by the time we knew what the class list was going to be in the sciences. So
Yeah.
may have just been a 1-year anomaly too.
You know, I've said this, you know, multiple times over multiple years, but I think, you know, in the same way that we often worry about class sizes being too big, which justifiably so, but I also think there's such thing as a class being too small. Particularly if you're gonna run a discussion-based social studies class, in my opinion, 7 students is probably too small.
It might be one of our AP classes. Are you finding it too?
Yeah, so the five course for the science is environmental science with Roth, so she was brand new. And then hold on, I'm looking up the social studies. Sorry, I have so many tabs. Yeah, I'm working on the social studies one. Just one sec.
Any other questions? Thoughts, observations?
I mean, it's good news on the high school enrollment. The local students, of course, won't show up for 2 years of our money, but either way, my first thought was there goes our chance to spend down the money again this year.
Actually, the students show up next year in subsidy. It's
Next
special ed that's delayed.
Okay.
So
Right.
our October count impacts our subsidy for the ED 279 that comes out in
You can't
January.
lose any of these students before October.
Yeah, well,
Strap them into
that, you know, if they go to another school, that other school wants them for their subsidy. So just like if someone comes here, we want them for our subsidy. So
There's actually 2 7 for social studies and one's AP Gov and the other was a US history block for Hamel.
What What do you mean by a US history block? Just,
Just a-
So there's more than one block of US history, so that often is governed based on what other classes the kids are taking. And so sometimes some of those are larger and some of those are smaller to meet the needs of their other requested classes.
Yeah. They probably set up the sections based on the overall count, and the master schedule drove kids away from that section just because of conflicts and such. So,
I don't pretend to understand the vagaries of the high school scheduling process, but I will say that in my opinion, 7 students is too small for both of those.
Yeah.
I'd be more inclined for the AP course, right? Cause
Yeah.
I would think there's value in providing that, and if it's only 7 students, that's 7 students for just a section of US history.
well,
We gotta figure
yeah.
something out there.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes hard to, sometimes it might mean, and I don't know that this is the case, that the other section is larger because we build sections based on overall course request counts. And something in a conflict that, you know, is an individual student conflict, push students away from one section. And in a small school with as many course offerings as we had, that's gonna happen. It's just going to happen.
I get it, but at the same time, if I try and run a section with under 12 students, I get all kinds of heat about that. And I have to go like bend over backwards to justify doing that.
I mean, to me, it's a little different if it's a special one-off course.
No, I agree with that, but.
Whereas if
the
it's a
US one is
section,
not.
there are so many constraints in trying to put a schedule together, trying to add balancing. I mean, I know they do pay attention to balancing student numbers, but trying to say you can never run a small section of US history.
I wouldn't say that, but I would say that there's, for a class like that, having a section of that at 7 students is something we should try very hard to avoid.
I agree with you about the teaching consequences too. It's just that,
The AP one is a different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it is different.
Okay, anything else on class sizes? Okay, then move on. I see Angela has joined us. Anybody object if we move E up to the front of the action items? Seeing no objections, we'll go ahead and deal with the proposed international field trip. I have this at the back of your packets.
So, Angela is requesting that we approve this trip to Argentina for April of 2027, trying to meet a deadline that's coming up soon to be able to lock in the lowest price possible. If we wait much longer, then our price goes up for you know, that would have to be renegotiated. And looking over the details, it you know, meets all of our, what we ask of folks to put into place when they're planning these trips. Also, in looking at the State Department advisory, Argentina is, you know, doesn't have alerts that are any different than, you know, many other places in the world right now. So I supported bringing this trip forward to you. Do you have any questions?
I'd make a motion to approve the international field trip as proposed. Is there a second?
My second.
Any discussion or questions? All those in favor? Thank you, Angela.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have staff co-curricular nominations. I'd make a motion to approve the slate as presented. Is there a second?
A second.
It's page and a half. I don't think I'm gonna read it tonight, but it's in the board packet if anybody wants to see it. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor? Passes 4-0. Next up, we have a van purchase.
Yeah, this is the van that we've been looking for a while that can accommodate 2 wheelchairs at a time. It was a little harder to find within our price point that we were hoping to spend. It's a little over our price point, but it's because we added a warranty that we really think feels important. And it's a pretty comprehensive warranty for us. So we will overspend what we had planned by $2,537. But we wanted one that didn't have any rust issues, that had low mileage, and that accommodated 2 wheelchairs, and this looks like the one.
Was the plan always to buy a used one, or did that?
Yes.
It was, okay.
Yep, yeah.
I would make a motion to authorize superintendent to contract and purchase the van as presented. Is there a second?
A second.
Discussion or questions? All those in favor? Passes 4-0. MESBA delegate is the Saturday. They used to do this at the conference, but they now do it by Zoom. And so it's the Saturday before the conference. It's basically 2-3 hours on Saturday morning. They have sent out the resolution packet. I've looked at it. There's nothing super controversial. The new resolutions, let's see. Close that somehow. Hold on a second.
So while he's looking for that, so if we want to have a delegate, we have to send in our delegate information by October 7th. So that's why I'm bringing it forward now.
Brian,
Brian
you
had-
serve.
I was gonna say, you've always been our delegate.
I have, I'm not super excited this year. It's 3 days after I get home from an overseas trip. So if somebody else wants to step up. If you nominate me and it's okay with 50-50 that I show up or don't show up. That's better than somebody who doesn't want to do it at all, but,
What day is this
It's
again?
October 18th. It's a Saturday at 9:30 virtual.
Over-
so there's a new resolution to encourage the Department of Education to be a functioning, the Federal Department of Education to be a functioning, useful unit. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, it's 3 sentences, but that's what they're saying, right? Tax policy. MESBA believes the state should continue to fund the public schools raised in a fair and equitable manner, pointing out the property taxes are not equitable. This one's a little bit loaded in the sense that there's a big movement to change the allocation formula, not the amounts, but the allocation. So for example, towns like Camden that get no property, don't get any state money, maybe changing that a bit so they get money for special ed. And there are towns always who think they're shafted by the current version of the allocation formula. So there's a movement to reallocate, but this doesn't get into any specifics. It's really pretty general about funding fair and equitably. And there's a motion to maintain a commitment to safe environment for immigrant students. And then the rest of it is 5 pages of cleaning up the existing policy book, which there were 1 or 2 things I could pull out, but a lot of it's just cleaning up things. You know, like there used to be a huge section on school consolidation, which still is boiled down to 2 sentences. The districts that want to consolidate, don't force districts to consolidate. So that's what the resolution packet looks like. Were you expressing that openness, Mark?
No.
Upon further consideration.
If it was after the middle of November, then I would be open.
Yeah, I mean, overall, it's an important function, in the sense that MSMA, has a full-time lobbyist. They don't call it a lobbyist, but it's a lobbyist who walks the halls of, state legislature trying to get legislation, turned in directions that's favorable to the districts. And it's very helpful for them to be able to point to this policy manual and say, this is the position adopted legislatively by the school boards. In other words, a majority of the school boards are supporting this. I've done it a bunch of years. I'm sure I'll do it again. Anybody want to do it?
I was gonna say, if anybody else wants to do it, I'd be happy to support them. If nobody else wants to do it, I'd be happy to support Brian and give it a 50-50 chance that he goes or doesn't.
I mean, I will say you're one of 60 people, right? So your individual impact. I mean, if you know Robert's Rules of Order, you can actually have an impact. I certainly feel like I've had an impact, but it's still somewhat limited. Okay. Go ahead and make your motion,
All
Mark.
right, I'm gonna endorse Brian McGill as the RSU 26 delegate to the MESBA
convention. A second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 3-0 to 1. I mean, Meredith, you passed out the agendas. I will give the plug for going to the conference. I teach into Thursday morning, so I can't go down to lunch, and I still think it's worth going. It's just all these sessions, some of them are pretty nerdy about First Amendment rights in schools, and some of them are special ed or budgets, and great places to learn and come up to speed on the fire hose of being on the school board. And some of them are just really cool new ideas about outdoor education or math coaches, or it's where new ideas come from. So would pitch that. Okay, moving on to policies. We have a second reading of DIDA, fixed assets. We did have a reading of this 2 weeks ago. So
We didn't make any changes to it.
we didn't change it. Nobody had any comments or questions, so we didn't change it. So this is just directing the auditor to conduct the audit about capital assets in a particular fashion with particular thresholds. It's not going to change our budgets. It's not going to change anything for students, but it will make the federal government, who requires us to be audited, happy. So I would make a motion to approve policy, adopt after a second read, policy DIDA as presented. Is there a second?
My second.
Any discussion or questions? All those in favor? Passes 4-0. We're on to subcommittee reports. Policy subcommittee hasn't met since the last time we reported out. This is our last work product, and as Meredith said, we do have 3 or 4 things bubbling up for the next meeting, which at the beginning of October.
Next week,
It is, isn't it?
isn't it? I
Yeah.
think.
No, you're right. Should be. Oh, yeah, it'd be next.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be next week.
Next week, it's here already.
Yeah. Anything from UTC?
We have not met since last time.
Curriculum subcommittee did meet since the last time.
Susan commented on that in her
Yep,
report.
she updated us in the report. Wellness committee, I don't think has met. No, is not here. Strategic plan leadership did meet since last time. You got a bit of an update on that with Meredith. Any questions on any of the subcommittees? Any other business? Any requests for future agenda items? Any public comment? Our next meeting, should a teacher hire arise, would be October 7th. Otherwise, our next meeting would be, and in that case, it might be a summer format, a short format meeting. But otherwise, our next meeting will be October 21st at 6 p.m. in the library and on Zoom.
So for now, we should keep the 7.
I don't, we're not going to need
Not
it.
gonna happen.
No.
Okay.
We can take it off.
Yes.
Sounds
We
like
can book something else in that
We can
slot.
book something else in that slot.
All right, any requests for information or follow-up? I would motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Look at us.
It's the fall, don't worry.
But we're not meeting for almost a month.
Great, yeah.